actually at the Cooperstown Brewery now, and I've had a few samples, but here's what it looks like. A little batter over there, silhouette on the wall. This is Cooperstown after all. What's this over here? Cool. So now we're gonna go take the tour and see what that's all about. The beer's pretty good though, from the sample. There was only one that wasn't really my style out of 8, so it's pretty good. See you on the inside.
This is our brew house. We start our whole process here. And right now we're conditioning the water for tomorrow. We're actually going to heat this up to 163 degrees. We're going to use food grade phosphoric acid to drop the pH level from 7 down to 5.5. The reason we do this is we don't put preservatives and chemicals in the beer, so we want to make sure it's going to come where no bacteria or anything can grow in it. So once we have the water where we want it, we'll heat it up. Actually, we got it heating up to 163 degrees. We're going to start mixing the water with the grain. Barley's actually grown in either 2-row or 6-row, which means how many rows of grains are going to be on per stalk. Some of them have more nutrients than others. Steep. During that time, the starches are going to turn into fermentable sugars for us. Once that's done, we'll open the valve underneath the table. We're going to start feeding the water up into the brew kettle, and we're going to slowly start that process. It's actually a 2 to 2.5 hour process to pull the beer from the one tank to the next. We're going to start sparging. We got a big upside down sprinkler on top of that mash tun that spins and washes all the good stuff out of the mash with more water. Once we're full, we'll have 620 gallons in there. So once we have it up at the right level, we're going to pull that lid shut and watch to see it steam. The first puff of steam lets us know within 3 minutes we're boiling.
All right.
So as soon as we start boiling, we'll start adding in the hops. We're going to add some kettle coagulant. We use an Irish moss. What it does is it starts collecting all the particles of hops and grain and pulls them all to the bottom. I'm sure you've seen the new Miller commercials. They think they're so great and they're foolish that they're like, we're so unique, we cold, the old ones where we cold filter our beer. Well, now they're doing that. We triple hop our beer, we're so unique. Everybody does it. This here is what we call a hop percolator. Basically it works like a giant tea bag. This here is a Fuggles hop from the UK that we use. We're going to use 6 to 7 pounds of those. We'll put them in here. There's a big screen on the top and on the bottom to hold them in that unit. We're going to fill it up with hot water and let it soak for about 4 hours. We'll have it hooked right into our lines here, and we'll push the brew right through that unit. Next, it'll come in the heat exchanger. We have a plate exchanger. Basically, it's got 2 sets of passages. Every other passage will run the brew through, and on the opposite passages, we're going to run an ice cold water. By using this, we can get the brew from 190 right down to about 70 degrees. But the only downfall is it uses somewhere between 700 and 900 gallons of water. So rather than just dumping that water down the drain, we're going to pipe it right back to the first tank so we'll have it ready for the next brew.
Oh, nice. Once
we get our fermenter halfway full, we're going to pitch our yeast. Our yeast is called Ringwood yeast. It was first discovered somewhere around 250 years ago in Ringwood, England. And the nice thing about it is it's a living organism, so it regenerates every time we use it. You being a home brewer, you know what gravity stands for. So, well, we got a gravity point we're going to start at. It tells us the density of the fluid, how much fermentable sugars are in it. So we'll float a hydrometer and we'll get a number we start off at. And then we have a number we let it drop down to, and the difference in between the 2 numbers is what tells us our alcohol content. So, once we have our number we're going to start at, we're going to watch it for 3 to 5 days. And we're going to babysit it. And once we see it hit the final number, we'll skim the yeast off the top, leaving a layer of about 1 inch. We'll store our yeast in the refrigerator. Once we're done doing that, we're going to bring the beer down here and start cleaning it up. Before we filter the beer, we got to actually get the dead yeast cells out. On the inside of the tank, on the top of this little tube here, we're going to put our carbonation stone. If you notice, it kind of looks like a bubbler wand that you would put in the back of a fish tank. It works on the same principle. We want to put our CO2 line here to the bottom of that hook tube, so once this is filled with the filtered beer, we can force bubble the CO2 into it. By carbonating this way artificially, we can get the beer carbonated in about an hour.
Nice.
Once we have it carbonated, we're going to figure out how many kegs we want to fill. My assistant will spend the whole day cleaning the kegs. I'll fill them on about an hour on them. We have an attachment that hooks to the bottom of the tank that has 5 taps on it. And we put 15 pounds of CO2 pressure in the keg and 20 pounds of pressure on top of the beer. And we can force that beer into 5 half kegs in about 2 minutes flat. This is our classic piece of machinery here. This is probably somewhere between 60 and 80 years old. As far as we can tell, it used to do Coca-Cola. It has a tag on it that says it used to do Coke Fresca and something called Caller. You can find somebody that knows what that was. I can't. I've had people in here 60, 80 years old. Nobody ever heard of Caller. So it tells you this machine's pretty old. We put the bottles in the box and let this machine take them out because it moves so fast. Just at half speed, we would need 2 people to feed it bottles. This week we did 240 cases in an hour and 25 minutes.
Wow.
And that's for me hitting the on switch and starting to fill this machine up. Out of the washer, we're going to run them right into the filler. Our filler works just like a carousel with 24 spouts. It continuously spins clockwise. On the other side here, we got star wheels that'll pull the bottles into the machine. Once they come into the red clip, the piston will pick the bottle up, start filling it with beer as it comes around. So once they come through, they'll come into the next machine real quick and stamp the cap on while it's foaming to make sure there's no oxygen in that headspace. And then they go into our label machines. On the other side of the machine, there's a basket on the top that grabs the that holds the labels. These fingers are going to start going up towards the label basket. Rubber roller with glue rolls glue across the fingers, goes up, grabs the label out of the basket, brings it back down, and pulls out of the way while the brass finger holds the label into the brushes while into the bottle while it comes through the brushes. You can see just right there, it's grabbing the glue from the brass one, comes across, rubs the glue across. Now if there was bottles in here, those fingers would actually go up to that basket and, you know, come down. Where we got the case packer. This machine's got a whole mess of sensors on it to make sure that it's good to go before it operates. There's a switch in the back there. Once enough bottles are lined up, they'll hit the switch. These 4 pistons will hold the rest of the bottles back. This table will pick the box up. This unit will shift, drop the bottles in. And then there's a chain conveyor under here with 2 arms on it that'll actually push the empty box into the full box and send it up the conveyor.
That's crazy.
Where we got 2 people taping them up and dating them and putting them on pallets. Yeah, this past week it took me more time to clean and set the machine up than it did to bottle the beer.